We're currently facing a challenging environment, especially in international financial markets. There's obviously a slower global growth, slower growth in China, and there's also been a contraction in commodity prices. And all this has put to a test to emerging economies as well as Mexico. And to cope with this new challenging environment, we have front-loaded our financing transactions. We have, since April 2015, we have met our external financing needs, and we're pretty much also finished with the financing needs in the peso side. We've also looked for ways to diversify our financing sources. So we've this year tapped the dollar market, the euro market, and we've also been able to expand our maturities in both markets and also issue at the lowest historical yields. As I mentioned, we are done with the external financing needs for this year. However, we always leave the opportunity to do a pre-funding transaction by the end of the year. We're looking currently at the yen market to do a samurai transaction. For the last years, we've developed that market. We've consolidated our presence, and we've become a familiar name with Japanese investors. And we're very committed to return to that market, and we hope to do it by the end of this year or hopefully next year. So, well, Mexico is a manufacturing economy, so it's not as exposed to oil and other commodity prices as other emerging market economies. However, given that it's a challenging environment with lower global growth and with a sharp contraction in oil prices, Mexico is taking some actions to cope with this challenging environment. And one of the big initiatives is in the economic package. Mexico proposed a very fiscal package with a reduction in fiscal expenditures. They also introduced new financial instruments to attract private investment in infrastructure, in energy, and in infrastructure related to education. And it also shows a commitment not to increase the fiscal deficit. In fact, we're reducing the fiscal deficit by 0.5 percentage points. And we've also shown a commitment not to increase debt in this environment. Well, bonds and loans and derivatives, it's one of the biggest conferences in Mexico. It's a reference for most of the financial players locally and internationally. It's a great place to communicate with both investors, financial intermediaries, and it's, I would say, a place where there's, given that it's also privately held, a good place to exchange ideas on how the market is coping with the current environment, what issuers are doing, and also how the Mexican economy will perform during 2015 and 2016. And with that, obviously help issuers, investors, as well as market participants to learn how they can implement new strategies that will help them cope with the volatility that we're looking at right now in the financial markets.